The future stretched, our days were limitless. No worries of what tomorrow might bring.
The happy times
would always last. How could we know that the future was brightest when we knew it was the past?
Slider or a poke. Ice cream, you scream a slider or a poke. Ice cream, you scream a slider or a poke to beat the sunstroke. Ice cream, you scream a slider or a poke. Ice cream, you scream a slider or a poke. Ice cream, you scream a slider or a poke to beat the sunstroke.
Magic roundabout chimes us out.
None left inside but a few. Well, about my first memories, they aren't really my memories, they're everybody else's, because I was born, I have a twin, and we were both born brought up in a terrace house, but it had an inside bathroom, which was pretty good. Mm-hmm. It had a yard and an entry out the back, but it had a long front garden. But we were born in the front bedroom. And there was a nurse called Nurse McBrady, and she was like the midwife. It's like midwives that they have the programme now, and she lived in the area, and she used to go in when any kids were being born. But my mother didn't realise she was having twins until I was born. So they then had to call for the consultant the guy needed Mr. Casement, he was called then, and he came out, and the story is that my sister then was born 7 hours later because she was breech. So that was a big story around the whole area. So start off, and there was only one cot in the house, so everybody was scrambling to get another cot, and another this and another that. So I started off, really, there was 2 of us, right? So, and sometimes at Christmas, you would have got a present, it would have been, here you go, that's for both of you. Or you would have been called the twins. So your identity can kind of be a bit lost. So you have to fight more to regain who you are. Yeah. But there was a lot of happy memories because we had an older sister, my sister Maura, and she was brilliant at telling stories. So we used to all sleep in one back room. It was a really small back room, and she used to make up stories about the hot water bottle. And we also used to she'd call it Walter. And it was amazing. Her stories were fantastic. To this day, she became a teacher, and she's brilliant with English anyway. So we also used to look out the back window. We had to be very quiet because my mum would have come up with a slipper. Right, who's not sleeping? Because we made any noise. So, but those days there were no troubles. The troubles didn't start until I was about 10. So I remember everything being, peaceful and normal. And I remember when the change happened. And I remember when I was about 10, I remember I was swinging around the lamp with a friend down the street, and the next thing she was away. And nobody said what happened. So we had all these lovely memories of peace, and I really appreciate that, and being able to walk or go anywhere. And we used to play I remember a lot of snow happened when I was young, and it used to lie because there was no gritters, and you didn't want anybody gritting. So we used to make a big slide right down the street. It was a hilly street. Right, you don't realise that now when you're driving, but right down the whole street there was a slide. But then again, there weren't many cars on the roads. But we had such fun, and we had fun playing with each other or making up stuff. There was no, you didn't need a computer. You didn't get any real holidays or anything. You might have got going to some house belonging to somebody, but you didn't care. You didn't ask for very much. You didn't need very much because everybody had each other, and the community all came together as well. So that's what I remember, all that.
Right, well, when I was young, we lived in Ligoneel, and that was the first childhood home that I ever remember. And there's one thing that always stands out in my memory, and it was when I must have been about 13 or 14, and my father had taken ill this summer, had very high blood pressure, and he was put into hospital for 6 weeks. And with me being the eldest child, I was left in charge of the house. My mummy went out to work, and I was left in charge. So on this particular Friday, she had said that I was in charge of the house, and she pointed to everybody and said, "You all listen to her and do as she tells you." But of course, as soon as she went out to the door, nobody paid any heed. And my brother, who was next to me, he was chief troublemaker. Well, he wound me up. He knew how to wind me up. So anyway, I'd asked him to do something for me. I can't remember now. But he'd refused, and I'd lost my temper with him, and I ordered him out of the house. And he wouldn't budge, so I pushed him out. And we had a triple door then. You had the front door in the middle and the 2 side panels, and they were all glass. And I pushed him out the front door, and I says, "Get out and don't come back." And as he went out, was going down the steps, I pushed the door, closed. And what I didn't know was that he had turned to come back in again. And his knee went through the front door, the bottom panel, and I just looked at it and I thought, oh my God, I'm in serious trouble here. Because if anybody knew my mother, they knew this was bad news very bad news. So she came home from work that day and there was a great big hole in the front door. And how did that happen? And then, of course, everybody grasped on me and said, she done it, you know, and all this sort of thing. So anyway, that was put to one side and everything was fine. And on the Monday, my mummy goes off to work again. Same thing. You're in charge, and you all listen to her, blah, blah. So this particular brother, same one, and he wound me up again. And I had been walking around with a tin of fly spray. And he must have done something. So I shouted at him and I went after him and he ran up the stairs. And he was up the stairs, so I just lifted the tin of fly spray and flung it all the whole way up the stairs. And I swear to God, I could see it to this day. It seemed to have a mind of its own. It turned and it hit the lantern window. And we had a 6-foot lantern window. And it cracked it from one end the whole way up to the other. And and I remember going into a panic over it, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to be in serious trouble here, really bad trouble." And I remember there was a wee builder's yard just down the road from us, and I went down, and I says, "Oh, mister, I'm in serious trouble. Can you help me out here?" And I told him what I'd done, and he says, "Oh, my dear girl," he says, "there's nothing I can do to help you." He says, "You may go and face the music." And my mummy came home from work, and oh my God, what I had to listen to when she came home from work. And she said, "What am I going to tell your father? Your father's lying in hospital." And I will always remember being summoned down to that hospital. Tell her I want to see her. And I remember walking into the ward, and my father lying in the bed, and he was reading the paper, and he left me standing at the end of the bed in the ward full of men, and I was left standing there going, "Oh, Mama, what am I going to do here?" You know. And then he just lowered the paper and just looked at me, and, "Well, what have you to say for yourself?" And I just said, "Oh, there's nothing I could say." He says, "Do you think money grows on trees?" And he says, "When I get home," he says, "you'll be answerable for it." And all. I thought, oh my God, it was the worst summer of my life, I can tell you. But that's all I have to say on that one.
My first memory was West Belfast, Murphy, where I grew up. Well, lived with my grandparents, because when I was a child, my mum and dad separated up. So my first early memory was my granny in the kitchen and the smell of home baked bread. We used to have an open fire, and God love her, when it was winter, we all used to sit around this open fire to keep us warm. And it was the best childhood we had, because she always made sure we were proper and spotless going to school. Our socks were always spotless, our hair, she bent over backwards, for my granny. I was only about 2, 3 when I went to live with her. So my granny would have been in her late 50s. And it was just brilliant. There would have been me, my sisters, my brothers, my granta. And I remember going out my granta's back, and you walked up these steps to it, and I used to catch the bumblebees, and he used to say to me, "Miss Jacqueline," and I used to go, "Yes," and he used to go, "You're going to get burnt or stung one of these days," and I would have went, "But I'm letting them go." So I had to catch them in the glass milk bottles, and then let them go. And I used to sit, play with all my friends, and because I was a good climber, my older sisters would have went, "Jacqueline," and I used to go, "What?" And he used to go, "Come on, we need to put up ropes." And I was up the top of this lamppost putting up about 20 ropes for everybody, because I was the best climber and the best runner. And then just playing out the backs, because where we used to live, there was entries, oil entries. And then people back then used to put their old cookers out. So me and my friends would have took the cookers and made mud pies. So It was good, like, and then I used to go to St Bernadette's school, and that was we used to have good times. So that was my best memories, like with my grandparents.
I have the loveliest memories of home. I was brought up on the New Lodge in Leper Street, which became quite famous in later years because there was a lot of activity went on in Leper Street during the Troubles. We had a hole in the wall, you know, and people sort of used to escape there from the security forces. But anyway, our home was a very happy home. We were 7 of a family, and I was the young three, the 3 at the bottom of the family. So I have lovely memories of my mummy and daddy who made everything sort of right for us. My mother was always at home, which I think most mothers during that era would have been at home. And she shopped every day, and we had a fire in the hearth, and she had a great sort of idea about what was important in life. And she used to say things like, you know, the most important thing is that you get on with one another, that you take care of one another, and also if you have a fire in the hearth and food in the cupboard, you're home and dry. You know, she just had a very sort of simple approach to life, and I think she conveyed that to all of us. And she was a great woman for sort of reaching out to neighbours. You know, in them days, you know, the lady down the street had a collection of wee children, and my mother would disappear, and we probably didn't know when we were younger, but she'd disappear, and the next thing, wee Mrs. Kelly would have another baby. So mother was there, you know. So she had that generosity of spirit, and I think she conveyed that to us as well, you know. She also was like an entertainer. Anybody who came got fed, you know. Saturdays, I can remember Saturdays, you know, the pan was on and the grill was on, and whoever came got a fry up on a Saturday, you know, and they didn't even have to be immediate family, you know, they were maybe friends or of ours or, you know, whatever. So that was the sort of atmosphere that I come up in. There was always singing. My daddy had a lovely singing voice, lovely. And he loved to sing all of those lovely Irish melodies, you know. My mother was more feisty, and she played the mouth organ, so she had a musical ear. But she sang songs that were sort of, you know, told lots of stories, you know, and we still, when we were all together, we would still sing those sort of songs, whereas my father had a very refined voice, and he sang lovely Irish melodies. And he went to the pub. He went to the pub because he liked the pub. He never drank in the house. There was never sort of alcohol in the house. But he went to the pub, and then he'd come home. And when he'd come home, he'd be singing, and he'd say, Jenny, I met such and such a buddy tonight, and I have to tell you, this is the song I sang to him. And then he would start singing, and my mother would say to us before he came in, when this old fella comes in, no singing with him, because we'll not get to bed tonight, you know. So that's the sort of an atmosphere that we had. And strangely enough, we, up until just recent years, we would have always been together and sang all of those lovely songs, you know. And I can remember we lived 2 up, 2 down. So we were in the back bedroom, you know, us girls were all in the back bedroom. And my daddy had great hands, and our house, you would have thought, was from up the Antrim Road somewhere, because we had like 3 bedrooms, because he made rooms in the bedrooms, you know. He was very handy with his hands. So we were upstairs, and when we went to bed of a Saturday night or towards the weekend, we would be lying and we could hear the boys at the corner. I think I maybe have told that story before, but it was lovely. We used to lie in bed and listen to them, and the boys at the corner sang in harmony, you know. You know that lovely song, When We Were Boys at the Corner of the Street, we were. So they were lovely memories. And we would have been lying in bed singing in harmony, you know. And I can remember moving years and years later when Peter and I got married, and we moved to Hopefield. And the night that we moved to Hopefield Avenue, it was such a relief, because where we lived down off the Limestone Road was quite troublesome. And when we moved, we went to bed that night and we didn't even lock the doors. We did, you know, we felt just so secure, and we went to bed. And I'm lying in bed, and the next thing I hear, these songs. Our neighbour next door, who we hadn't really got introduced to, or we didn't know them, they had come from the club. The guy, you know, the daddy of that house, had come from the club with his mates, and they were all in the house singing. And when I woke up, I thought I was back in Leper Street. And I said to Peter, this is going to be a happy home, you know. And it was. We had moved from trouble, you know, to somewhere that was very secure, off the main bus route. You know, your children weren't sort of going to be under any sort of pressure. But the nicest thing was, on the night that we moved, we were serenaded to sleep. It was just lovely. When I spoke to the next door neighbour the next day, I discovered that the people who were in the house were actually people who had known my brothers, and, you know, and it was just lovely. So that's a wee bit of where I came from.
I just wanted to say something about my family and my sister, who was a bit older than me, and her and her boyfriend wanted to get married. And she wanted me to be the bridesmaid, and of course everything was okay. But there were two different religions, and there was nobody would marry them unless she turned or whatever. But she didn't want to turn, and there was only one priest who would marry them in our down chapel. And probably some of you will know him when I say the name. His name is Father Marcellus, and he was the one that married them, and I was the bridesmaid. And I am absolutely terrified of mice. I would jump right out that window if a mouse came in here. And my whole family know that. So they were getting married anyway, and he was standing in the gown, but where I was standing, I could see his beetle boots, and I could see his corduroy trousers, so he was real modern, and he had white hair, and he was quite young as well. So as they were getting married, of course, you're standing looking like that, you don't look down. And apparently this mouse came out. Where it came from, nobody knows. And my mummy says, oh, please don't let her look down, because if she looks down, she'll jump up his gown. And I would have. But I just was standing, staring ahead. So whenever we got out onto the steps, the priest came out along with us as well. And my mother says, tell him, you know, about the mouse coming out, and if she had seen it, she'd have jumped up your gown. He says, it must have been a wee Mickey Mouse. And sometimes when I think, my mother said at the time that the mouse went near nobody else, only round and round my feet, round my feet. Must have knew. I'd just like to say that the bride and the groom both came through the Newington years later, and the Newington was really, really good to both of them. And at the time, we wouldn't have been able to cope with what was going on with the two of them. And the Newington was there to save everybody.
The times they are a-changing. I grew up in a mixed area, a quiet cul-de-sac in North Belfast off the Shore Road. Lovely, happy memories growing up, playing games, running in open spaces across the road known as Burnsey. Green grass, water trickling and sprigs of plentiful. I had one brother and one sister. My sister married young and set up home in Ballyholme, County Down. My brother boarded in college and took on a priestly vocation, also attending Queen's and Maynooth. Coming home on vacation, we had great times together. The troubles were starting. Mum and Dad passed on in their own time. I was left at home until I got married at the age of 46. One day, out of the blue, civil disturbance, which we did not encounter before, broke out on the main Shore Road right beside where I lived. It was quite distressing, but my brother rang from Donegal to collect me. After hearing the news, he said, "Bring what is really special to you." And we proceeded to drive, where we got through safely to a friend's house. On the corner, I noticed a friend who was keeping watch from the same district. He looked at me reassuringly. I worked with him before. I felt safe. I stayed away for a while and came home to my lovely home, which was safe and sound, thank God. I got married shortly after that, and I am still friendly with all my former neighbours to this day. I could return to my lovely home, which was unaffected by the trouble. A small bonfire at the corner, but stayed there happily until I got married, and I am still friendly with my Protestant neighbours to this day.
I'm the middle child. I have the middle child syndrome with two brothers at the other end. I was reared in a 3-storey house in Twickenham Street. When you went out the front door and I looked right, the Mater Hospital was at the end of the street. And my childhood memories is of it being quite a wide street, no cars or very few cars, despite the Mater Hospital being at the top of it. My home was, my mum worked from home and we lived with my grandmother. And music in our home was the sewing machine. My mum had a big industrial Singer sewing machine that she made men's trousers with. And that was always, during the day, that was always on the go. It was electric, so it had the motor, and we heard that continually. Having the middle child syndrome as an adult now, I remember my older brother and my younger brother being able to go out and play, but I was the female, and the shopping and things landed on me. But having said that, we lived with my granny, but my granny's sister sort of became what my class friends would have talked about their granny. She would have been in and out of the house, bringing us treats and what have you. With Mummy being able to do all the sewing, and my grandmother and my aunt, great aunt, they were great at the knitting and the crocheting. So all our clothes were all homemade. There was nothing ever bought. Everything was homemade. And then I do remember we would have had the best of clothes, really, when you think of it. And my father being the eldest of 12, there was a lot of cousins up in the country. So the knock-on effect from them. So we were the fancy Belfast people to go up to the country. So that was always nice. Loved going up to the country because you were just one of what seemed dozens of kids. And I do remember the nights that we would have been up there, especially the summer nights, it never got dark. It seemed to be bright at midnight, and there was that many youngsters. The adults didn't know where we were, so we got away with everything. Went up the road and picked berries and what have you. It was great. But, we lived again. The troubles were starting, and we had to move, which wasn't a very pleasant experience. But it was much quieter where we moved to, because again, being where we were, the Orange Men left from our street in the 12th morning and other mornings. So you would have heard the drums and you would have heard the pipes and all getting blown up. It was quite, I suppose, looking back, interesting to see all those big banners. They don't call them banners, isn't it? Would have been put up against your wall, and they all formed and away they went, and that was it to tea time. They came back. But it was quite a different childhood.